Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to what is the final episode of the TGC Summer Anniversary Series here in 2026. And we're finishing off with the wrestling channel, and it's going to be another episode of Original Universe Reaction Series, which is no longer reacting to very much. And like I said on the last one, I'm going to be talking about from Raw June Week 3 all the way till the last Saturday night's main event before Money in the Bank. Because there's a lot of just weird stuff here. And I don't have much else to say, to be honest. So, we'll jump in here. So, on Raw June Week 3, right away, I made a note of saying that this was... From this episode forward, the series would be entirely booked by me, IRL, and in kayfabe, like in the universe, it would be booked by Kurt Angle, who would be the GM for Raw. And that would be announced in this episode. And then the match card itself for this episode would be Big E with Xavier versus Sin Cara with Kalisto, Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch versus Natalya versus Tamina versus Eva Marie versus Alicia Fox in a 6-woman battle royal. Then the rematch that I said would happen from the last episode of this series, and I guess last episode of the Original Universe from main event, the rematch between Alex Rain and Dolph Ziggler and Tyler Breeze and Damien Mizdow, that tag match. The rematch does happen here. Then we have Charlotte Flair versus Caitlyn Rain, and then the debuts to the universe for Brock Lesnar, Triple H. They would be in a triple threat match with the U.S. champion T-Ice. And right before that match, the Raw GM would be revealed. It would be Kurt Angle, and then he would, of course, sit ringside for the match. Yeah, so for this episode of Raw, we're getting more stuff kind of like involved with tag team action and more stuff with the U.S. title potentially as well, with Big E and Sin Cara here. But Big E does get the win over Sin Cara. More women's action is always a good thing, especially back in the day when that was not guaranteed from both me and real WWE. And Alicia Fox actually ends up getting the win here amongst all those other women. Yeah, Dolph Ziggler and Alex Rain would get another win against Breeze and Mizdow. Caitlyn Rain would defeat Charlotte Flair. And then the only match we actually showed was the main event where T-Ice would actually win in the triple threat with Brock and Triple H. And the match would actually end in a pretty cool way. As Brock was getting ready to finish off Triple H, T-Ice came out of nowhere, hit his finish, and got the win on Brock Lesnar. So that was pretty cool, actually. I kind of like that finish. And overall, I don't dislike this card. I think it works. But then after that, we moved to the next episode of NXT. This was the week that we officially started the Cruiserweight Championship Tournament, where we had 2 matches on this show. And the match card itself would be Ty Dillinger versus Austin Aries, which was a tournament match, where Ty Dillinger would actually beat Aries with a brainbuster to advance to the next round. Then we had a tag match between DIY and Enzo and Cass, where Enzo and Cass would get the win. Shinsuke Nakamura would defeat Baron Corbin a week after defeating the NXT champion Samoa Joe. Then we had Emma defeating Bayley, and then another Cruiserweight title tournament match. Simon Gotch would actually win in the main event against Finn Balor. And that's, again, I think this works. It shows off more people some people who had already been involved in NXT, some who hadn't. And I think it works overall for what it is. And where things really get off the rails here, and this is... So, the last episode of Main Event was plagued with, I'm pretty sure, me having a very cheap phone at the time, of course recording then with my phone, and I ran out of storage space during the main event and didn't fix the issues until afterward. So, yeah, that was plagued by that. But then this episode and this episode of SmackDown and the next episode of Main Event were both plagued by actual corrupted footage that got rid of everything. And instead of at the time just re-recording that footage like a smart person would have done, my dumbass just said, oh, the footage is lost. I can't do anything with those episodes now, so let's just try and explain that somehow in the next video and just move on. So, yeah, I had, luckily, in preparation for this or not even in preparation for this video, I had already made, like, my own Google Doc with every single week and every single match in those weeks for the original universe. And for this episode of SmackDown, main event, and an episode of NXT coming up that we'll talk about in just a minute, that just don't exist now for some reason, I got as close as I could through things I actually talked about in those videos at some point that did happen, that could only happen on these episodes that are lost, and some that I just kind of like had to piece together. So it's as close as I could get it. And for this episode of SmackDown, which I know for sure did have corrupted footage, because I do say that in one of the things, I know that the SmackDown GM was revealed, and that was Edge. I said there was some number one contenders match that happened, but for the life of me, I'm pretty sure that cannot be true. Because I look at everything title-wise on SmackDown, and we already knew the Intercontinental title match from Money in the Bank. We already knew the TV title match from Money in the Bank. The World Tag titles would have a number one contenders match after this. We already had an idea of the world title match at Money in the Bank and knew everyone involved except for one potential person. We already basically knew all of SmackDown's Money in the Bank ladder match except for like one potential person guaranteed. So there was no possible way to have a number one contenders match on this episode of SmackDown. So past me was, again, just fucking lying. Straight up just lying. And I don't know. But besides that, I do know for sure that the TV champion Fandango had to have faced and defeated Adam Daniels on this episode of SmackDown. And I also know that the triple threat that I said would happen on the last episode of Main Event, because of the weird issues there would be a triple threat between Chris Jericho, Sami Zayn, and Mark Henry, and the winner of that triple threat would go on to be in the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match. So I know that triple threat had to happen here as well. And then, as far as I can tell, Luke Harper had to have had a Money in the Bank qualifier on this episode. Who he beat to get in the match, I don't fucking know. But he had to have had a Money in the Bank qualifier on this episode of SmackDown, and he beat somebody to get in there. And for the life of me as well, I have this vivid memory of Bray Wyatt defeating, like, I swear it was The Undertaker, but maybe it wasn't. But I have this vivid memory of showing a match on SmackDown with Bray winning that led to him getting into the world title match at Money in the Bank. But I cannot confirm that at all. I don't talk about that match. It doesn't show up anywhere else. But my brain tells me that match happened. And I know they would have a match later in 2K17 when I carried the series over to that game where Taker would win. But I know, I swear Bray had a match where he won, and that's how he officially got into the world title match at Money in the Bank. But I can't actually confirm if that was true or not. But I swear it happened. But if all of that is true, then that is at the very least three matches that had to have happened on this episode of SmackDown, and I'm pretty sure 4 actually. So there's only one match that I just can't figure out. And knowing past me, who fucking knows? Unfortunately, for the next episode of Main Event for June Week 3, I have no idea. I've gone through, watched these old videos, tried to take notes, piece things together, and I've pieced together almost the entirety of this episode of NXT, or this episode of SmackDown, and then the next episode of NXT. I've basically pieced almost the entirety of those episodes together, but this episode of Main Event, I have no idea. I have not been able to figure out anything that would have happened. I've never said what happened. I just said, oh, corrupted footage, and then that's it. So, basically, this episode happened, but it also basically didn't. Because apparently nothing of importance happened for me to talk about it later in any way. So yeah, I have no idea. But we can move on to the next episode of Raw, which was, of course, for June week 4, which was also the first episode I would ever have for the game being on the... for the series being on the PS4 version of the game, though for some reason I still recorded it with my phone. So yeah. And that would become, or that match card would be Caitlin Rain defeating Alicia Fox, which was built up throughout the previous weeks. Both had wins, they face each other here, and that is officially a number one contender match for the women's title. Caitlin Rain would win, and would face Nikki Bella one-on-one at Money in the Bank. Then we had the final Raw Money in the Bank ladder match qualifier. It was a last chance battle royal, which would be Sin Cara actually eliminating both Brock Lesnar and Cesaro in a match also featuring Rusev, Eric Rowan, and Damian Mizdow. So Sin Cara would win that match and would get the last spot in Raw's ladder match. Then Jack Swagger had a random match with Tyler Breeze where he would win. Don't ask why Breeze is on Raw now when he was on SmackDown before. I don't know what Past Me was doing. I have no idea. But Breeze is here on Raw. Swagger beats him one-on-one. The match means nothing, but it's fine. Dolph Ziggler and Alex Rain would finally get that tag match with the Golden Truth, and they would win, becoming officially the number one contenders for the New Day's WWE Tag Team titles. And then Triple H would face the U.S. champion T-Ice one-on-one, since Triple H did not get pinned in the triple threat in the previous week. And that would be also a number one contenders match for the WWE title, and Triple H would win and would get that shot against Seth Rollins at Money in the Bank. And yeah, this card as well is fine. It works. I do kind of wish I wouldn't have been so aggressive with booking Battle Royals so much. Like, yeah, I like Battle Royals. They're fun, but I booked way too many of them back in the day. But outside of that, it all works and is fine for what it is. And now, NXT Episode 4, so June Week 4 episode of NXT, this is the one where I just had to make a mental note of this just apparently doesn't fucking exist. And I eventually was able to piece together almost the entire show. There's just, again, one match that I don't know what it would have been. I know that I say it in the 5th episode of NXT, so the one after this one, that Braun Strowman is 1-0. So he had to have debuted and competed here, and then I would later find out that he had to have faced Samoa Joe, because I say that Joe lost to Strowman in a later episode. So I know this match had to happen there, Strowman defeating Joe. I know Alexa Bliss at some point had to compete against Asuka, and it had to have been here. There's just no other spot for it. And she wins over Asuka. And then I know Enzo Amore and Tommaso Ciampa had their Cruiserweight title tournament match here. And same thing with Aiden English and Johnny Gargano. And Enzo and Aiden would both win their matches, and both would be Cruiserweight title tournament matches. And that actually leads me to believe, because I do actually say in the next episode of SmackDown that I recorded NXT, and it was the first one where I was doing post-commentary, meaning that it would be the first episode officially that I was recording through the PS4 at the time, which tells me that it had to have been copyright issues, but it couldn't be through music, because I wasn't editing in music at the time. And the PS4 version of 2K16 onwards to the current games don't record any background music at all. Nothing. So, what that tells me that all those years ago, I had to have got a copyright claim for the Vaudevillains Titantron, which was happening a lot at the time, and little 16-year-old me got pissed off about it and deleted the whole video. I'm pretty sure what happened. I'm pretty sure I figured that out earlier today, writing all this shit down. But at the very least, I know mostly what happened on this show. But yeah, those 4 matches happened, and I think, again, it's fine. Nothing crazy, nothing to really talk about too much, but it's all fine for what it is, again. And then the next episode of SmackDown we can't actually talk about. We had a handicap match between my team of the Celtic Bomb, Batista and Sheamus, against Ryback, leading into their triple threat for the Intercontinental title at Money in the Bank. And of course, the tag team would win over the one guy. Then we had an actual tag team match between Primetime Players and the Usos, and PTP would get the win over the Usos, becoming the number one contenders for the Dudley Boyz World Tag Team titles. Then we had Big Show and the Brothers of Destruction teaming up again, this time against AJ Styles, Neville, and the World Heavyweight Champion Daniel Bryan. And we'll have another match later in the show where they have the same kind of theme, and that's the people in the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match. Like, half of the SmackDown Money in the Bank ladder match would face half of the World Title ladder match. And yeah, so both those matches are like that. And AJ Styles, Neville, and Daniel Bryan would actually get the win in tag team action. Then Fandango, after defeating Adam Daniels, would take on me. Again, I know, we'll talk about that later. Would take on me and would win. Non-title, but he would win there. Defeating both members of the Gatecrashers back-to-back weeks. And then we had a Battle Royal, again, booked way too many of those, in the main event. It'll be Randy Orton, Mark Henry, and Luke Harper from the Money in the Bank ladder match from SmackDown against Kevin Owens, Bray Wyatt, and Dean Ambrose from the World Title ladder match. And Bray Wyatt would actually win, and he was never actually confirmed to be in the World Title match at this point, which is also what tells me on the previous episode of SmackDown why Bray had to have had some sort of match there to officially be in the World Title ladder match. But yeah, that's what happened there. And again, for what it is in my booking at the time, it's fine. Like, there's nothing that doesn't make sense. There's a lot of things that are being built off of in some way, so it all kind of works. But then we have main event, June week 4. We have a women's match between Sasha Banks and Naomi, so again, it's cool to have women just getting more time. That's always a good thing. Jericho and The Miz is just kind of a random match, but The Miz gets a win. Sasha Banks would beat Naomi, by the way. Tyson Kidd and Sami Zayn would have a match here as well. Just another random match, but Tyson Kidd would get a win and would propel Sami Zayn even further into his losing streak. And then we have another dumb fucking stipulation for a one-on-one match with managers. Again, Adam Rose with Heath Slater would take on Bo Dallas with Curtis Axel. And again, I said for some reason, the losers would have to join the winners on their show and form the Social Outcasts, when none of them even had anything to do with each other before this. And yeah, it's another stupid stipulation. It makes no sense. And yeah, outside of that, there's nothing really, to build off of or build from with this card on main event, but it's fine, I guess, But yeah, this stipulation is once again another just dumb fucking stipulation in a one-on-one with managers match. Entirely booked past me, by the way. Just like the other dumbass stipulation like this, This one at least, makes a tiny bit more sense, but, the bar's in hell there. Because the last one I did makes literally no sense whatsoever. And this one still doesn't, but yeah, horrible, But yeah, the stuff that is here that I can figure is fine, I guess. Again, it's still basically building off of exactly what Tyson and I were both doing before the last episode that I recorded for this series, the reaction series, would tell us that that was the last one where it's co-op, like still basically building off of everything that was already happening. So I think it'll be far more interesting to see what my first full month of booking everything myself looks like. So it'll be interesting to see the next month what happens there, and how I feel about the booking there. But nonetheless, that's really all I've got for this one. That was everything from Raw, the June Week 3 Raw episode, to the go-home show, the final main event before Money in the Bank. Like I said, I don't have much else to say there. So that's it for this one, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.